It's creepy story time. We're back with another video where I'm gonna read a bunch of your stories. We're just gonna pick a place in my inbox from a while ago. I'm gonna read a story, click next, read a story, click next. We're doing this because I literally have thousands of your stories in my inbox and I wanna get through as many as I possibly can. I don't know if they're gonna be long, I don't know if they're gonna be short, I don't know if they're gonna be good, I don't know if they're gonna make any sense, but we are just gonna read them and see what we get. What's up, glitches? My name is Jess. People call me Auntie Matrix, and I read your weird, unexplainable stories about things like glitches in the Matrix, dreams, aliens, and the paranormal. These are all real stories, people's real experiences that they send to me to share with you. Our motto in this community is we believe you. If you want to join our glitch community in Discord, if you want to send one of your stories, or if you want to grab some Auntie Matrix merch, or a copy, signed or unsigned, of my book, A Glitch in the Matrix, all of those links will be in the description below. I'm gonna go pick a place to start, so sit back, grab a snack, and let's get weird! Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi! Thanks for bringing me my favorite content and making me feel less alone when weird, unexplainable things happen to me. You're welcome! Over the past couple of weeks, I have been waking up anywhere from 2 to 4 a.m. every night. Important side note, when I go to sleep at night, my phone goes on sleep mode, and all notifications are silenced until 6:36 a.m., and people don't have the option to hit the Notify Anyway button. iPhone users, if you know, you know. Typically, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I immediately close my eyes and fall back asleep, as I am very sensitive to other energies and terrified of what shadows may be lurking around the corners in the night. Last night, I woke up at exactly 2:10 a.m. I always check the time when I wake up, but instead of closing my eyes, I turned on my television before eventually dozing back to sleep around 3:58 a.m. I checked the time right before dozing off. I then wake up startled out of my sleep because I'm afraid that I snoozed my alarms and will be late for work. I hop out of my bed and grab my phone to check the time. When I look at my phone, thinking I'm 30 minutes late to work, I stop dead in my tracks. My phone's clock, in big bold font, says 1700. What the fuck? I was so confused, and my phone's clock was all of a sudden in military time? I lock and unlock my phone, power it down. When it comes back on, it says 1702. I'm slowly starting to panic. So I call my dad and I ask him what time it is exactly. He tells me it's 6:36 a.m. when my alarm normally goes off. I say thanks and hang up. I check my phone screen again and it's still in the 1700 hour, but this time I notice that it says October 2nd. Today is only September 29th. Now I really start to panic, wondering what is happening and feeling like I'm somewhere I don't belong. I pick up my phone again, now crying because of how afraid I am, and I FaceTime the guy I have been seeing for over a year now, and his mom picks up. She hands him the phone after saying, "Your friend is upset." He looks into the camera and says, "I have no idea who that is," and hands it back to her, and she hangs up. So I go into full-on panic attack, wondering what reality I am in because I know things here are not right. And then I see myself still laying on my bed, on my back. This position usually causes me to have sleep paralysis or to lucid dream. And now I know I am lucid dreaming. So I calm down and I transport myself into a different dream setting. I'm now at a bar with my friends and they all seem angry with me. And then I think to myself, I don't say it, but I think, I should ask them what day and time it is here. All at once, all of my friends and everyone else in the bar turns their head to look at me, and I know I need to wake up. I transport myself back to my body and I'm screaming, "You need to wake up! Wake up right now!" As I feel like everyone from that bar is now hunting me down. I'm trying to pinch and slap myself. I'm trying to turn my body on its side, but I won't budge. The real me won't wake up, and I'm panicking with the overwhelming feeling that I might be stuck in this lucid dream state forever. I can feel the people from the bar getting closer, and I am terrified. I close my eyes tight and open them fast, slightly relieved that the actual me is awake, until I realize I'm still sleeping. This happens at least 3 more times, where dream me tries to wake the real me up. Then, all of a sudden, I hear a text tone go off, and without hesitation, I open my eyes. My real eyes. I immediately grab my phone to check the time, 6:29 a.m. It's a message from the guy I am seeing, the one who didn't remember me. Then I realize it's only 6:29 a.m. and my phone's notifications don't make sounds until sleep mode goes off at 6:36 a.m. So how Did I hear his text come through that woke me up out of that scary realm I was in? What the hell was that? Where was I? Was it all just a dream? Did I slip into a different dimension, one where my man friend didn't know who I was? Was it a mix of both? When I got out of bed, I was so exhausted and my head felt so full of pressure, but I was too afraid to close my eyes and fall back asleep again. Sorry this was so long. I love you and all of your content. I love you too. So I don't really think it was a dream. I mean, when we're dreaming, a lot of the times we are astral traveling to other places, right? So I feel like maybe you were lucid and you were astral traveling to another dimension or another timeline in which that person didn't know you. The time was different. Apparently, maybe you lived somewhere where it was military time and not regular time. The fact that you didn't even vocalize what time and date is it though, and you just thought it in your brain and still everybody in the dream became like turned scary and tried to attack you is crazy. That's really scary. I'm wondering, did this ever happen again to you or was this it? Let me know what you guys think in the comments and thank you so much for sharing your story. Hello, Auntie. Hi, all the way from down under. Ooh, hello, Australia. Growing up, I always felt different, out of place and misunderstood, with green eyes too, nonetheless. LOL. My intuition was on par. The connection I have with animals is heartwarming, and weirdly, my dreams are something you could turn into a movie. I have come to realize childhood trauma was balanced out with the beautiful gift of being an empathetic soul. As I grow older, unfortunately, I get distracted every now and then with substance abuse, men, and eventually becoming a mother. When I do refocus, though, and just be at one with the world never fails, my gift resurfaces. The first dream I had with a hidden message was one about a Native American man doing palm readings at my local grocery store for free. When I approached him wanting some insight, the man legit scrambled up the shelving as if I was full of bad juju and he could not escape me quicker enough. The one thing he gave me was a date. I woke up and I wrote it down. A few years later, I was almost hit by a school bus and killed. Oh my God. I went straight home, checked the date, and boom, it was the same date given to me in my dream. 2021, I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night with that something isn't right feeling. My immediate reaction was to check on my eldest child on holidays. She was fine, fortunately. Unfortunately, the next day I received a call from my uncle saying that my Nana had been diagnosed with a brain tumor. Given her age and circumstances, survived breast cancer with radiation, etc., broken hip, surgery was not an option. I was mortified as I am the oldest granddaughter and live on the opposite side of the country to my Nan. As a single mother of 5 children, my funds are limited, so going home to see her was not an option. Fast forward a year, and I'm asleep again, and all of a sudden I hear my Nana scream my name, Kelly. I woke up abruptly and could not go back to sleep. The next day I was informed my beloved Nan had passed. Freaky, right? Ugh, hang tight because this is my favorite part. My Nan was living with her daughter, my womb provider. Given the trauma she inflicted on so many children in her care, that's all she'll ever be to me. Oh, okay. Due to much conflict between the two of us, the womb provider didn't allow me to contact my Nan for at least 6 months of her life, including attending her funeral. I was fucking heartbroken to this day that I didn't get to tell my Nana I love her before she left our world. That is terrible. One day I was brave enough to ring our local radio station to speak to an amazing medium. I told her I'd lost someone dear to me and that I wanted to know if the person knew I loved them when they passed. Oh my God. This woman said that she was seeing an older woman and something is wrong with her head. She absolutely knows how much you love her now, Kelly. She's telling me she wants to get a message to someone with the initial T. I thanked her quickly and hung up. My brother, the eldest grandson of our family, was cut off from Nana too. He wasn't able to talk to her, let alone visit. Guess what? His name is Troy. Special powers, naturally gifted, the privilege of communicating with someone no longer with us. You are blessed. Whatever you were given in the depth of your soul, embrace it. Life is too short to be wasted. One day, I was brave enough to ring our local radio station to speak to an amazing medium. I told her how I'd lost someone dear to me, and I want to know if that person knew I loved them when they passed. Oh my God. This woman said that she was seeing an older woman and something is wrong with her head. She absolutely knows how much you love her now, Kelly. She's telling me she wants to get a message to someone with the initial T. I thanked her quickly and hung up. My brother, the eldest grandson to our family, was cut off from Nana too. He wasn't able to talk to her, let alone visit. Guess what his name is? Troy! Special powers, naturally gifted, the privilege of communicating with someone no longer with us. You are blessed. Whatever you were given in the depth of your soul, embrace it. Life is too short to be wasted. Love and light, my friend. The first part, you definitely had a premonition in your dreams. And then the second part, I'm so sorry about your grandma. It sounds like she was trying to come say goodbye to you when you heard her scream your name. Hopefully hearing from the medium, it made you get some closure. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I've never written anything to anyone regarding my experiences, and I'm very happy to have found you on TikTok. Just for background, I am a 53-year-old Black woman that has saw and heard weird, unexplainable, true events throughout my lifetime. And I'm sharing a few in hopes that someone could give me some insight into what's going on, maybe? No, I'm not bipolar. As a child living in Chicago, my mom would say that I would take her by her hand and lead her throughout the house, trying to get her to see this woman. What? Especially the basement? I think my mom is intuitive and had some weird experiences of her own. I remember seeing the woman often, but my mom and dad couldn't. My mom and dad had a turbulent marriage, and as an adult, I now believe that this female spirit would come to comfort me as a child during these times. She wore a black, I believe, 18th century hoop-style dress, not sure about the centuries, with long sleeves, and her collar went all the way up her neck. And she had a cameo pendant fastened in the front of her dress by her neck. And she had, I believe, red or brown hair and a bun, and she appeared to be Caucasian. And I called her Libeth. My mom thinks I was trying to say Elizabeth. Okay, that makes sense. I was like, that's a really interesting name. I never saw her again after we moved. A side note, my dad sold that 2-story home. It eventually became abandoned. I was told a white lady was raped and murdered in the basement sometime in the 90s. Wow. We ended up moving to Mississippi right across the street from a very old segregated cemetery. I recall waking up in the middle of the night and seeing a tall skeleton standing between the dresser and the door. I remember being terrified and could not wake my mom. I was sleeping with her at the time, but she was knocked out completely for some reason. Another experience in that same house, I believe I was 6 or 7 years old. I woke up before my mom and drank what I now know is the leftover whiskey they had had from the night before. And no, I'm not an alcoholic today. Needless to say, I was stumbling drunk. But I absolutely believe a black cat stopped me from opening the front door and going outside. I remember this. I really wanted to go outside for some reason, and every time I would try to open the door, he would rub against me or trip me up and make me fall down somehow. I believe I finally gave up and passed out. I recently asked my sister, didn't we have a cat? She's 4 years older than me, and she says, yes, his name was Midnight. But my mom has hated cats our whole lives. And when I asked her about our cat Midnight, she says, you know I hate cats. Why would I have a cat in my house? And yes, she still hates cats. But me and my sister, on the other hand, love animals. And I especially love black cats. As I got older and realized that this wasn't normal, I became afraid and would pray not to see any ghosts. And I don't now, but I do occasionally hear what I believe to be spirits and weird sounds. Twice, other people around me heard it as well. Once I was in the process of moving and a friend of mine was helping me. We were talking in the living room when we suddenly heard what sounded like a large amount of glass breaking. It was just me and him in the home and my cat. He said, what was that? And I replied, I don't know. And we carried on as if nothing had happened. Other things happened to me as well in that home, and one day I will send another email on that. About a year later, I bought me a beautiful glass table from a secondhand store, and as I was picking the table up, I dropped it, and it broke into pieces. That's when I remembered the sound I had heard almost a year before. Some of my worst experiences were in hotels. Once I was laying on my stomach and fell asleep. When I woke up, I realized I couldn't move and something was sitting on my back. I started praying, and after a few moments, I was able to quickly turn my head to see what's on my back, and nothing was there. And that's when I heard what sounded like a monkey or a gorilla. You know that sound they make when they beat their chest? I was finally able to move and I ran out of there. But I wanted to share one last one with you. I know this email is long and I have many more, so edit this if you have to. Nope, we're not editing it. We are just reading the whole thing. So in 2020, I had lost some weight during COVID lockdown and started getting into different crystals as well. I was all on TikTok learning how to clean them in the moonlight and do other stuff to them. I even had bought a real piece of moldavite crystal. So I was feeling myself and decided to take some, let's say, risque pictures. I'm at my mom's house checking my pictures on my phone when they popped up on her big screen television. I must have somehow linked with her TV. I'm so frantic trying to figure out how to get those pictures off the TV before my 70-year-old mom walks in and sees them. I also had earbuds in my ears because I was about to play music and I hadn't pulled up any music yet. Nothing was on my phone, no radio or music was playing. When suddenly, in this very demonic sounding voice, I hear the word freak. It's funny today, but it was not that day. I finally figured out how to get the pictures off the television, threw every crystal in the garbage, and I went and had a stiff drink. Thanks for letting me share my crazy. Glad to know there's a safe, judge-free zone where I can share it. The end. Yes, this is a safe, judge-free zone, and we believe you. You had some crazy stuff happen to you, friend. Let me know what you guys think about those in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I'm just sharing this because I can't share with my kids since they're too little and might become afraid. I recently had a baby and had a very hectic labor. I had to have my uterus removed, oh my God, and 2 blood transfusions before I could be considered healthy enough to go home. I'm so glad you're okay. In the days I was at the hospital, I saw shadow people of all sizes walking around the hospital around corners. I told myself I was just weak and sleep deprived. Once I saw what looked like a shadow wearing a hood, and I stared, thinking it would go away, but it stayed, hovering over the baby's clear crib. I pretended not to see it, but the longer I looked, the less I could deny it looked like a grim reaper. I came home and for months saw little shadows walking around the apartment the size of a kindergartner or so. I wasn't afraid anymore, but I kept thinking it was just my sleep deprivation. I noticed the dog seemed to see them as well, but he's afraid of everything and didn't panic, so I thought it was okay. 2 nights ago, we set up a Christmas train in the living room, but the track was broken, so we left it and went to sleep. I wake up every night from 1 to 3 to either take the dog to the restroom or feed the baby or both. I'd noticed last week that sometimes the Wi-Fi was getting switched off when I would take the dog out, but I had to tell myself it had to be me that turned it off because the kids were knocked out asleep. The night we left the train in the living room, the dog woke me up because he was barking. The train had switched itself on and was ringing its bell super loudly. It's one of those toys that has the on-off switch and can only be turned off and on by grabbing the train and sliding the switch over. I pretended not to be afraid and went back to sleep. For the first time in my life, I had a dream where I see my death. I was in our apartment and there was an explosion in the apartment. The explosion turned everything blue, and somehow there was a moment of terror because everything got suspended in air and I couldn't move any part of my body. I was being lifted as if there was no gravity, and I felt my whole body being squeezed with so much pressure. I couldn't wake up, and I thought, I must not be dreaming. I started praying, and that is when I finally woke up, still feeling sore on my shoulder and chest and still praying out loud as I cried. That whole day, everything felt off. Both of my daughters seemed really sad, and I couldn't console them when they were upset. I wondered if I'd been sent to a different lifetime, like the stories I've heard on your TikTok. The end. I'm not surprised that you saw spirits in the hospital, right? Because I'm sure so much stuff happens in the hospital, so many people die, and there's definitely spirits all around a hospital. Then the entity that you saw at home that looked like a little kid, maybe it was the spirit of a little kid that was running around playing, and that's what turned on your train. Maybe they just wanted to play with the train. Your dream, though, I don't know what that was. I don't know if that was like just a totally separate thing and just a really crazy dream. I have no idea about that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your stories. Dear Auntie Matrix, hi. I have had several experiences throughout my entire life. I will turn 60 years old in a few months. I've been told my whole life that I am crazy with a great imagination from my mother and others. My dad believed me, and sometimes my one of 2 sisters. My dad died when I was 30 years old. I'm afraid to go to therapy for fear of being locked up. I was raised by a very religious mother in the Christian religion. I started to feel like there might be something wrong with me until I had witnesses and realized that I wasn't crazy. Here are a few stories that if you find interesting, you can use them as filler on your show. If you want more of my experiences, then you may contact me and I can send more. I might send more anyways because, like I said, I need therapy. Sorry I'm writing so many words. Don't be sorry, friend. Get it out. Train. My coworker/friend turned 16 years old. I was 17, maybe 18. She gets a car for her birthday. She comes over in the evening to pick me up for a joyride. We drive around our small town. It's getting dark. We go down a side street that I am not familiar with. We come to a sign that has an X for a railroad crossing. The road has gravel on the pavement. As we approach the tracks, a train engine turns on its lights and blows the horn. We did not see it before that. No electrical signals. She, my friend, slams on the brakes. We slide on the gravel and the front tires go up onto the tracks. I duck to the floor, no seatbelts back then. My friend lays down on the bench seat towards me and we brace for impact. A moment later, the train engine is on the other side of us, still blaring its horn, and we were not hit by the train. We sit up and finish going over the tracks and go home. Maybe there are 2 sets of tracks? A few days later, she wants to go back in the daylight to check it out. When we get there, there is only 1 set of tracks. Vacation. My boyfriend at the time driving us from Ohio to South Carolina for a vacation on the beach. On the drive, I fall asleep. I had a dream that we go through a toll booth and then a car drives towards us going the wrong way on the highway. I wake up. I asked the boyfriend if we happened to go through a toll booth on our way because I just had a weird dream. He said yes in about 10 minutes. So we go through the toll booth and then a car comes down the ramp entering the highway, then decides they don't want to go down the highway, turns around, heads down the road the wrong way and goes back up the ramp the wrong way. We didn't speak for the next 2 hours of the ride. The thing is, in reality, we weren't in danger. The driver was not going to hit us because we were far enough away and there wasn't much traffic. So I can't figure out why I had this dream 10 minutes before it happened. It wasn't that it would have changed anything by knowing. I don't know. Cat ghost. So that boyfriend that I just talked about became my husband. A few years later, he and I were sitting in our family room getting ready to watch TV, probably a football game. It was in the afternoon. From my chair, I looked over to the computer desk and saw a cat sitting on it. It looked exactly like the cat we used to have that got loose in the backyard and never made it back. She was gone for a couple of years and we got a dog. I asked my husband if it looked like there was a cat sitting on the desk. He said yes. Thank God he saw it too. He said, "How are we seeing this?" I don't know, maybe the light reflecting off of different things on the desk is creating an illusion of a cat. So I asked him to go over to it and move the stuff around it that is sitting on the desk. He does. I can see his hand go through the cat and move things. While he is standing next to her, I asked him if he can still see. He says no, that the closer he got to her, the more she faded away. But me in my chair, I can still see her. So my husband comes back to where I'm sitting and then he can see her again. This time I walked up to her and the closer I get, she begins to fade away. My husband says that he can still see her beside me, but I can't see her. We go to sit down and watch TV and he says, "What do we do now?" The cat stays for about another 10 minutes and then fades away. We were dumbfounded. Hindsight, I should have grabbed the camera. More strange things to share maybe another time. The last few years, I have been trying to learn quantum physics, listening to lectures and reading books. I need to understand how these things happen. I feel that there is a scientific answer, cause and effect, light and vibration, transmitting and receiving, brain translation of surroundings or messages that are not being blocked by filters or fear, having brain waves at just the right frequency to receive information. Thank you for your time and for being here to help us not feel crazy when the rest of the world does. You are welcome, and we believe you. You are not crazy. First one, that was either a ghost train or somebody saved you that day. Second one, I'm not really sure why you had that premonition of something that wasn't even going to affect you. Maybe the fact that you even said anything to your boyfriend like, "Hey, do we have to go through a toll booth?" Maybe that changed something, you just knowing. Or maybe it was just one of those things where Spirit was just like showing you premonitions just to test you and to help you practice is what I mean, not test, like to help you have you practice with like little things to show you that things do come true. Third one, cat ghost, I guess. I don't know, maybe the ghost of your cat. And as far as the science thing goes, like trying to figure out quantum physics and stuff like that, I feel like it is all connected. Not that it's all connected, but I feel like science can explain anything and anything can be explained by science. We just don't have all the knowledge yet. Let me know what you guys think in the comments though, and thank you so much for sharing your stories. I've been meaning to send this story for a while. It's really weird, but I promise it's true. I'm going to try to make this story not as confusing as it sounds. I'm Ashley, a German female who used to be 19. You will get what I mean after a bit by used to. I was a cashier in McDonald's and I used to share an apartment with my mate Lauren. I used to get these weird dreams that I was in the wrong body, and it made me overthink a lot after my shifts. Lauren noticed how I haven't been doing well since she usually comes to visit me with coffee. One day after a long shift, Lauren asked me if I wanted to go for a ride. Here's where the story takes a twist. Me and Lauren were blasting music and we didn't hear the honking of a truck that was coming right at us. When I noticed the bright lights from the truck that was about to hit us, I blacked out. After I woke up, I was a completely different person. What I mean by that is my name is still Ashley and I'm still a female and German, but I'm not 19 anymore. I woke up in a different house in a different country. I didn't know what happened and I was so confused. When I then started to recall memories I know aren't true. I remembered that I'm actually 14, even though I know I'm not, that I never had a mate called Lauren, and that I'm still in school and I don't have a job. It took me a year to process this, and I still remember everything from my past dimension. 2 days ago, I had a dream of Lauren. I was shocked because I knew somehow my dimension is trying to take me back, and what if the me from this dimension is in my dimension? I don't know what happened, but my question is, if I didn't switch realities before that truck hit us, would I not be alive right now? I hope you and your viewers can help me out with this because my life has been so confusing lately since I'm still trying to process this reality, and people have been telling me that something about me changed, but they can't tell what it is. I know this story sounds insane, but I swear on everything it is true. We believe you. If you switch timelines right after you saw a truck coming at you, I'm assuming that you got hit and died and switched into like the quantum immortality thing, switched into a very similar timeline. I guess it wasn't too similar because you were still German and a female, but you were in a completely different place with different memories started coming into you. I wonder what your dreams of Lauren are because I don't feel like that dimension is trying to get you back, but I feel like maybe you're seeing memories in your dream of the other timeline, or maybe you're visiting it somehow. Like, are the dreams that you're having, are they things that happened already in your life when you were in that dimension? Or are they new happenings just with Lauren in them? I have heard that when you do die and you quantum immortality jump into another very similar timeline, that soul fragment of yours is merging with the one in the current dimension that you switched into. So maybe you merged together and you just happen to remember a lot of the things from your past timeline or dimension when you're not supposed to. I don't know. This is so, so crazy. You sent this a while ago, like last December. So I wonder if your memories from the past timeline have faded or if you still remember everything. I wonder how you're doing now. How are you doing now? Friends, tell me what you think in the comments, please. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hello, Auntie Matrix. Hi. This might not be your usual type of email, but I would like your opinion. This happened a couple of days ago. I was lying in bed about to go to sleep when I had the thought that I'd like to quantum leap. I follow someone on Instagram that said a person can choose to quantum leap during that little gap between when you are awake and about to fall asleep. I know some people don't believe you can do things like that, but I have manifested some amazing things in my life, so I am on board with this line of thinking. I am also on board with it. So I was about to sleep and I decided I would take a quantum leap. It was like climbing through a low window, and I found myself outside of my parents' old house. My dad died in 2019, and my mom had died 2 years before him. Not a day goes by that I don't miss them. My dad was an older parent, and he didn't have me until he was 45, and he died when he was 92. He was a very quiet person, and I am 99.99% sure he was autistic. He was cranky for the most part and very set in his ways and routines, but could be sweet and had a good sense of humor. My son is autistic and is exactly like my dad, so it answers so many questions about why my dad was the way that he was. They didn't diagnose things like that back then when he was a kid, of course, but he managed to grow up and he was a World War II vet, a business owner, and had a family. He kept his distance from my sister and I. He was never loving towards us and just let my mom do all of the parenting. When my mom died, I got to know him better because I would visit him and call him every day to talk on the phone. He had started telling me that he loved me at the end of each phone call, which is something I have never heard from him growing up. When I left, I was standing outside of his house. It was nighttime, and the moon was out and very bright. In New Mexico, the skies are clear and wide, so a full moon can light up everything. We had sold this house, and the new owners did a major renovation, so it was barely recognizable. The house was completely dark, like the owners were either asleep or not home. Something drew me to go to the backyard. I went around the side of the house and saw the yard had been changed a bit, but still like I remembered. It was two-leveled. The lower part had grass and a large walnut tree, and the upper part had plants and a gazebo. In the north corner, there was a pear tree, and it was also where my dad always had a garden with tomatoes, zucchini, and peppers. He would always bring me boxes of fruit and vegetables from his garden all summer long when I moved out and had my own place across town. I could feel I was really there. It wasn't a dream. I bent down to touch the paver stones and could feel their roughness and smell the way the rocks smell when they are wet. I am here, I kept saying. This is real and it feels so good. The area where my dad's garden had been was let go, but there were vegetables that had come up on their own, still some zucchini and tomatoes growing wild and almost ready to pick. I walked around for a while and then I heard something out front. A car drove up and people were talking. I went back towards the front of the house and saw a man and woman getting out of a car in the driveway, and I assumed it was the new owners of the house. I walked over to them and said hello, but I scared them as they weren't expecting a person to be in their yard. The woman screamed and ran off. I tried apologizing to the man, but he was very angry and started yelling at me and saying he was going to call the police. I apologized more and I told him I had grown up in that house and my dad had lived there up until we sold it a couple of years ago, and I had just wanted to see the yard. I hadn't meant to trespass. He was still very angry and said he was going to press charges. I couldn't convince him otherwise. He gave me an address where he worked and told me to meet him there. It ended up being at a school, and when I went to his office, he was in there with about 5 students. They were dressed in classic private school uniforms with plaid skirts and blazers. They had books and graphs with them. The man told me I was wrong about trespassing and the students would prove it to me. One girl opened up a book and it had pictures of the universe with nebulas and galaxies. She said that I was wrong and belonged in this area. She pointed in the book. Right is over in this area. She pointed to another area in the picture. The other students held up graphs and mathematical calculations that supposedly showed me I was wrong. I turned to the man and I said, "There's a garden in your backyard. I hope you eat the tomatoes and feel all the love that a 92-year-old man had for his family. I hope that love fills every cell of your body and then it radiates out to every corner of the universe." I turned to the student and I said, "I went into the yard because the moonlight was like a magnet which I could not resist." She said, "Okay," and closed the book. The students, the man, and the room all faded away, and I was just alone in a completely empty space. No room, no building, just white light. I could feel myself going back into my bed and body. I kept my eyes closed because I didn't want to break the spell. I could feel the love from all the tomatoes I had eaten all of those years flowing through my body. The dream, or whatever it was, had lasted all night, and it was time to get up. A few hours later, I was driving my daughter to ballet. I was pretty teary about what I had experienced and wore sunglasses so my daughter wouldn't see, even though it was cloudy where I live in the PNW. I dropped her off and I said to myself, if that experience had really happened, I'd like the universe to show me a sign. I wanted to see 777 somewhere before I got back home. I barely had the thought out of my head when a white SUV came out from the alley, cutting me off, and its license plate had the first 3 letters of my name and then 777. So CHE 777. I was stunned. I don't think there was any possibility that this could have been a coincidence. I feel that I did either quantum leap or I had an interaction with the universe where my dad was telling me that he loved me. I never remember my dreams, and this is like nothing I have ever experienced. Thank you for reading. Wow, this was such a good one. There is no way that that was a coincidence. Absolutely not. That was definitely a sign that that was a real experience. You definitely like astral traveled or something into another timeline. I love that so much. How cool. The students thing is really weird. Like, I'm wondering if the students showing you with like nebulas and galaxies and like you should be here, but you're over here kind of situation. I wonder if that was like the dream police that we always talk about, but like in a nicer way, being like, hey, you shouldn't be here. Like, you need to go back to your own dimension, like your own timeline. And I love the beautiful things that you said to the teacher and the students. How cool was that story? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. This isn't as crazy as most of your stories, but it was definitely super weird. My son is 6 and has been very attached to his stuffed animals forever. There are 2 in particular that he absolutely adores, a puppy and a bunny. Last night, he was going to try to sleep over at a friend's house and asked me if when I brought him his change of clothes and blanket to bring a stuffed animal. I asked him which one he would like, and he said, Puppy Puppy. That's what he named the green dog. I was upstairs in his room when I was on the phone with him, and I said that yes, I would grab Puppy Puppy when I went downstairs, and he insisted that the puppy was in his room on his bed. I was fairly certain I had moved it earlier that day in the living room to sweep the floor, but I didn't think much of it and looked in his bed while we chatted on the phone about what he and his friends were up to. I found the puppy under his blankets and added him to the bag of overnight things. I told my son I would be over soon with the bag since I had found Puppy Puppy, but when I hung up the phone and walked down the stairs, sure enough, on the side table by the couch was the green dog I had moved earlier in the day. I looked in his bag, and there was the dog. There were two of them. I asked my boyfriend if he had gotten another dog, and he said no. I've called everyone asking, and no one got him the second dog. I bought him the first one because I had the same one when I was little. This second dog is not mine as I lost it years ago when I moved states away. No one has any explanation for the second dog, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I guess on the bright side, I don't have to worry as much about him losing this one. So crazy. Okay, first I was like, okay, one of these like glitch in the matrix things where timelines are overlapping and like that dog went out of a different timeline, came into your timeline, and now you have two and the other timeline has zero. But when you said that you used to have one just like it, I wonder if something brought yours home. Did it look exactly the same as the one that your son has? I'm talking about the way that it's worn and used, or did it look like even older, like it could have been yours? I'm very interested in this. Either way, what a cool glitch in the matrix. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing. Hi. Hi. I hope you are well. I am. I hope you are well. I have a few creepy experiences at my grandparents' house that have happened over the years. The first one was when I would look at my window in a certain way, I would hear a bunch of voices. Only happened at my grandma's and in that certain spot. The next was in grade 7. I went to leave to go to a school play at the theater and forgot my CD, so I ran back inside, and as I grabbed my CD, I said bye to Granddad, and he replied as normal. I didn't hug him or anything as I was in a hurry, and when I got home, I asked my grandma where Granddad was, and she said he had been at work since 7. I called my granddad, bawling and freaking out, and I think my grandparents swore I was just insane. I'm pretty sure it was just his dad. He has his ashes in the house, and that kind of comforts me. Ha ha ha. The next thing was just constantly hearing the classic woo sounds every night for a few weeks until I found the courage to tell it to go away. And like a few months later, it happened again, and I immediately said to go away, and I haven't heard any since, at least, LOL. The final and most recent was a few weeks ago. I was in bed, and it felt like the corner of the blanket on the right was being pulled, and I quickly put it under my feet. I didn't open my eyes, but oh my God, I wish I did. And then my left leg felt like it was being pulled out, and I felt a lot of pressure on my throat, but that could have been anxiety, hopefully. I told it many times to go away, as the next few days I still felt weird when I entered my room. Thank you. This is like the second story that I read recently where someone said they heard classic woo ghost sounds, which is crazy because I never heard that before. Before these two, I've never heard of spirits actually going woo. Like only in the movies. So is this something that they do that I'm not aware of? That's so weird. And I do not like that something was pulling on your feet. That's like one of my biggest fears is being pulled, dragged out of my bed by my foot by some weird entity. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you so much for sharing your story. So I have two crazy stories that happened. First story. Years ago when I was spending the night at a friend's house and we were trying to talk to spirits since she lived in an oldish house that apparently was haunted. Side note, this was the second haunted house she lived in. The first one was almost 100 years old and was 2 stories with a basement. She told me a paranormal tale that happened to be about Bloody Mary, Queen Mary of England. Yes, that story. So because I've always had a sense of the paranormal, I did the Bloody Mary game. Worst mistake of my life. I was a preteen. What do you expect? LOL. At exactly 12 a.m. on the dot, I felt like someone was laying on top of me and their hands around my throat. I could not breathe and I was almost blue. Something or someone was choking me. I felt a very angry presence, and when I finally fought off whatever was on me, 12:01, I finally woke up and saw a pale red orb fly by me and disappear. They say some spirit can have different orb colors depending on their nature. Red wasn't a good color. Finally able to catch my breath, I looked at the mirror where some light was shining on it, and I saw some small bruises on my neck. Of course, it was dark and I couldn't even notice them. Eventually, I went home at 12:30 a.m. as I was so terrified. Second story. This was 2012. It was Friday the 13th, and it was me and one of my friends went to go spend the night at another friend's house. She had a Ouija board for us to play with since it was Friday the 13th. The other friend was hesitant about it, but I again stupidly encouraged us to do it. Talked to a past friend who had died in 2010 in her sleep her senior year. A very good friend of my sister's, as they were in the same class. She appeared as long as we had good intentions. What I've learned is you have to have a wall and not be scared. You can't allow spirits to be able to scare you. If you do, they will do whatever it takes to consume you and your energy. I knew my intentions and kept my wall up. The other two, I don't even think they were trying or even cared. Side note, to paint this picture, all that took place, there was 2 bedroom doors facing each other and a bathroom door in the center. The bathroom door was facing the kitchen where we were playing with the Ouija board. No one else was up except for us. Off to the right side was the dining area, and off to the side, keep this one metal 3-tier basket. In mind, it's important. So I started with asking if any positive spirits were there, and it said yes. 1, did I know you? It went to yes. Am I talking to my sister's late friend? It went to yes, and immediately spelled I miss y'all. All of a sudden, I could feel a shift, a change in the atmosphere. I asked, are you do watch other my sister? Nothing. Asked again. Nothing, and went straight to no. I asked again whoever was here, and it said me. I asked who's me? No response. The hesitant friend broke off the planchette and ran straight to the bedroom having a panic attack. You're supposed to say goodbye to the Ouija board, but she broke it off. That's how you unleash an evil spirit. The other friend was trying to calm her down as I was telling them this is why you have to stand your ground and only have positive intent. This is where things get freaky. Oh, it's not freaky yet. About 15 minutes passed and no one has left the bedroom and no footsteps were outside as the board was right there in the center of the kitchen floor. The planchette was gone. As all of us quietly walked around the house, I eventually found it on that 3-tier metal shelf where it was leaning on a cross. Our friend started to panic and cry much worse this time and eventually went home as I stayed behind. We were both shocked of what had just happened. Her dad eventually asked us what happened and we should have known better. We were lucky something or someone was protecting us. I told him it was my sister's friend. He believed me as well as God was also protecting us and guiding my sister's friend to help. We haven't touched a Ouija board since. Since then, though, I've had an ongoing paralysis moments in my sleep. I've gotten better at overcoming them, but trying to get more in touch with my spiritual side. My grandma, who passed away last year, has helped me with that. Love you, Auntie of Spook. I'm glad that at least someone knows how to use a Ouija board responsibly and was trying to do so. And I absolutely think that your sister's friend or whatever good positive energy moved the planchette over to the cross to maybe like cleanse it so that because you guys didn't say goodbye, maybe it was helping you out and protecting you. I think that's actually really cool. If you've still been experiencing sleep paralysis, though, I wonder if something did get out. I hope not. I hope you're okay. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Hey, Auntie. Hi. First of all, let me say I love, love, love watching your videos and love you. I love, love, love you too. Anyways, this literally happened last night. I woke up needing water and glanced at the phone and it was 12:50 a.m. I know this because I texted my best friend back responding to a conversation I'd fallen asleep in the middle of. Went to the bathroom, then laid back down and had fallen asleep. I know I was asleep and for a while. I know it. But then I woke back up again to her response. I looked at the time. It was still 12:50 on the dot. I thought I was losing it and I went back to bed. Again, I fell asleep. This time, my son woke up and needed water. Again, I checked my phone and decided to text my best friend back. It was still 12:50. It's like I was trapped in 12:50 a.m. Trapped. Honestly, I thought I was dreaming, so I got my son the water and I went back to bed. The next time I woke up, my phone still said 12:50 a.m., but the sun was coming up. I again went back to sleep and finally awoke to my alarm at 6:30 a.m. Both of my kids remember waking me, and my best friend has the text I sent her, so I know I wasn't dreaming. I don't know how to explain this one, but it's like I was stuck at 12:50 a.m. Anyways, I love you, Auntie. You make my day. My question is, did you look at the timestamps on the text messages? Like, what did they say? Because if you texted back, then your friend texted back, then you texted back, and all the things happened, and it was 12:50 a.m. every single time, what did the timestamps on the text messages say? Then it was also getting light out, and it still said 12:50. Did it say 12:50 anywhere else on any other clocks in the house? Because in my brain, I'm like, okay, maybe, especially if the sun was coming up and it still said 12:50, but it was 6:30 a.m., maybe This is really weird. I would say the time like was frozen or something weird was happening with time, but the sun was coming up at some point. So I have no idea what was going on. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. So about 7 years ago, when I was in high school, my family and I moved into a new place. One night, I fell asleep in my room on the bed in a fetal position facing the wall. At some point, I get up, I go to walk up the stairs and go to the kitchen for some reason. As I'm walking through the living room, I'm passing a huge mirror that's above our chimney, and I don't see myself at all. I look down and I don't see my feet, legs, hands, nothing. I don't have a body. I look directly in front of me and I notice my mom's bedroom door open with the light on. I start walking towards it, and as I'm getting closer, I hear screaming and commotion. I walk in and I see my mom laying down, having what looks like sleep paralysis because she can't move at all, but her face looks frightened. And on top of her is some big figure. It looked like a monster, not human, like, and way bigger than a human. He had black elastic skin, large wings coming out of his hunched back, and he was torturing her with his movements, like he was throwing her blankets around, all in her face while on top of her. I'm watching this with horror on my face. My mom can't move, but her eyes look directly at me at some point. When she does this, it turns around and looks at me, goes to jump at me, and I go to run back to my room, and this is where I see myself sleeping in the same fetal position facing the wall, just like I remembered falling asleep in. I'm so confused at this point, so I walk to my body, look at myself, and just crawl into bed with my body to lay down, and then I woke up. Fast forward to the next morning, and my mom is taking me to school and tells me about how she had such a scary dream the night before. As she's telling her story, I finish with mine. We had matching dreams. The way she described hers was this scary figure on her, and she was trying to scream my name for help but couldn't speak or move. I walked into the room and it went away, and she was so terrified she had to turn on her bedroom light and collect herself for a little bit, and even pick up her blankets off the floor on the side of the bed. Even though we had the same encounter together down to every detail, to this day, I still don't know what that was and how that worked. Was it real? If it was a dream, were we together in the dream world? No, that wasn't a dream. That was real life. I am willing to bet that was real life, because if you didn't see yourself in the mirror, didn't see your body, but you're walking around, and then when you went back to go into your room, you saw your body sleeping, you were astral traveling, boo. You were astral projecting. You were astral projecting. Your soul was out of your body was chilling there, and you were going through the house, and then your mom was legitimately having sleep paralysis because she had some sort of demonic entity on top of her holding her down and throwing her shit around, because she woke up and her shit was thrown around. So that was real motherfucking life. I think that you somehow were astral projecting to help her. Like, I think you either were pulled out, or I don't know how, but you get out of your body, and it was like you were meant to do that to help her, to get this thing off of her. That is what I think. I think you saved your mom. Tell me what you guys think. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi, it's me again. I sent you the story about the dark figure behind floating me. Well, I have another story. This one isn't really about me, but my sister. My sister and I are almost exactly a year apart. We're the same age for 2 weeks, not that it even matters. Anyway, one night after dinner and everything, we start our chores. I finished mine before her, so I decided to wait up with her and keep her company. We were super close. We were hip to hip. I mean, we are Irish twins, after all. Side note, when I was in high school, my uncle lived with us. We had a den, so that was his room. It wasn't far from the kitchen and a dining area. Some nights he'd stay and some he wouldn't. Needless to say, he had a girlfriend who is now his wife, so he just wasn't home all of the time. This particular night, he had stayed at his girlfriend's. So one of her chores was to clean the kitchen. As we're cleaning the kitchen, we're just talking about boys and school stuff. Mid-conversation, we hear someone call her name as clear as day from his room. We stop and look at each other to make sure we weren't just tripping out. After staring at each other for like 5 seconds, she asks me, "Did you just hear that?" I told her yes, and we were both frozen in fear. I thought maybe we should go check to see if my uncle had come home without us knowing. We checked, and his room was empty. It was so surreal. We finished the kitchen and we went to bed. To this day, we've never talked about it. We left it there in that night, but I always think about how I came to stay with her and just what if? Clearly, that was not your uncle. Did it ever happen again? It sounded like a mimic to me. Well, actually, I don't even know if it sounded like a mimic because you didn't say it sounded like your uncle. You just said you heard someone call her name from his room. What did the voice sound like? Did you guys ever hear anything like that again? Or maybe in a different timeline that could have been overlapping a little bit, he was home and calling her from his room. But you didn't see him in this timeline because he was in the other timeline, but you heard him because they were crossing. I'm just speculating all the things I can think of right now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Indie Matrix, insert hi. Allow me to preface this by saying I remember when you posted a Glitch in the Matrix story number 13. I cannot believe we have come this far. I love you so much. I wish we were friends. I love you too. I also know how you feel about lengthy stories, so buckle up. Just last year, on December 1st, 2022, after 13 months of negative pregnancy tests, I finally got a positive one. I'm only 26 years old. Secondhand infertility is real. My husband and I were ecstatic. A very bittersweet day for us because we found out I was pregnant and found out we had to put our cat down. Oh, I'm so sorry. Background story about Khan, the cat. He was a grouchy, all black cat that wanted attention, but not too much attention. He was a man of his boundaries. He was extremely selective with who he got close to and who was allowed to pet him. Khan was fresh, to say the least, but he was still our loving companion. We had his appointment scheduled for December 5th. Between December 1st and right up until we left for his vet appointment on the 5th at 4:30 p.m. was his appointment, his behavior was strange. He was extremely loving, very clingy, and just wanted to be petted constantly. Heartbroken, we thought that he knew what was going to happen, and so it was just his way of saying his goodbyes. I was laying down one night and he hopped up onto our bed and got weird. Whenever he went near my stomach, he would freeze and position his tail like he was going to attack me. If I was standing upright at the bent over position petting him, everything was fine. If I was sitting or laying down and he got close to my stomach, he got weird. When I was pregnant with my daughter, my dogs didn't leave my side and neither did he. We thought it was just something along those lines when animals just know. Sadly, December 5th came and we said our goodbyes and continued life without him. Exactly 1 week later, I get home from work at 4:30 p.m. and was met by my husband in the driveway as he was assisting me getting our daughter out of the car. I stepped out of the car and he said to me, "Babe, did you sit in something?" I immediately knew what was going on and I fell to my knees in tears. After a few days of emergency room visits and doctor appointments, it was determined that I was no longer pregnant. I'm so sorry. I did not take this well at all. We just put our cat down and now this? This was the start of a very miserable few months for my family and I. I was having a very hard time coping and especially sleeping as I would wake up every single night around 2 a.m. For some reason, for a consistent 4 weeks went by where I would toss and turn for about an hour before deciding to get up and go stand outside for some fresh air. It just so happened that every time I went outside, it was 3 a.m. Side note, Khan loved being outside. He would spend days outside before randomly showing up at the door begging to come in. I say begging because Khan's meow was very distinct. Due to medical issues with his diaphragm, he had a very deep, the Grudge-like meow. It was not cute. It was not a cute meow whatsoever. Very shortly after he and the pregnancy passed, I would hear his meow outside. I knew it was him because of his meow. That deep, whiny meow, that was absolutely, no doubt, my cat. I kept telling myself that it was my hormones and I was just trying to cope with him being gone and the pregnancy loss, so I was just thinking I was hearing this. For several days this happened and I would just tell myself that it wasn't happening and it was all in my head. And for some apparent reason, I decided to venture out into the backyard closer to where the meowing was coming from. Each night I would get closer and closer to the sound, but it was just a sound. No matter where I shined my flashlight, there was simply nothing there. The specific area I was drawn to and where the sound seemed to be coming from was the hibiscus bush he always hid under. It got to a point where I was telling my husband that the cat was just outside, and he had to continuously reassure me that we drove together to the vet and did not come back with the cat. My husband was getting very concerned at this point and getting worried that I really wasn't dealing with the situation well. Towards the end of December, right before New Year's, I crossed paths with my brother-in-law, he lives with us, taking his dog out at 3 a.m. We ended up walking outside together and talking for a little bit. And smack in the middle of us talking, there it was, Khan's meow. The sheer look of panic on my brother-in-law's face when he, too, heard my cat meowing outside. I was so relieved that somebody else was hearing what I was hearing. It was the look on his face that assured things for me. He would not have had this reaction / facial expression if he wasn't experiencing what I was experiencing. The both of us took the dog and ventured out into the backyard again, trying to get close to where we thought the sound was coming from. We were standing right next to this hibiscus bush, and it felt like my cat was just sitting underneath it with his deep, grangy meow. We shined our phone flashlights in every shadow that we could, and there was just simply nothing there, despite what we were hearing. On New Year's, I woke up with 102 fever. As the next couple of days continued, my fever just continued going up. On January 4th, I woke up with 103.9 fever. It was 3 a.m. again. I was feeling very sick and warm. I made my way outside like I have been, and what do you know? Ghost Khan is outside making noises, only the meowing sounds different. It was equivalent to the sounds and hissing he would make when he got close to my stomach right before we put him down. I instantly grabbed my phone and put the flashlight on and started looking around. I made my way over to the hibiscus bush, and as I approached it, I felt this incredible energy, a sense of protection, if you will. I started to cry because I was extremely overwhelmed with emotion, and it felt like my cat was right in front of me. It was as though we were existing on two different planes that could not get to each other physically. I felt like I could kneel down and pet my cat as though he was in front of me because that's exactly what it sounded like. I took this moment as closure, and this was his way of saying goodbye, but little did I know that later that day, my boss would take my temperature and send me to the hospital, requesting a doctor's note to come back to work because my fever was so high. We thought it was the flu. I explained to the doctor that a few weeks before this, I had miscarried and have been bleeding since. I also explained that the first hospital I went to told me this was normal and there was nothing in my uterus and sent me on my way. After a few scans, we discovered that I had an ectopic pregnancy, so incredibly far along and infected that my fallopian tube burst, leaking infectious fluid into my pelvis. The 104 fever I had was not flu symptoms. It was just my body shutting down. Ladies, make sure they check your tubes too. Oh my God, that is so scary. Exactly 1 month after Khan is put down on January 5th, I get the entire left side of my reproductive system removed on emergency terms. When I returned home from the procedure, I never heard my cat outside again. I'm not sure if this is his way of trying to warn me that something was going wrong. It's the timeline that gets me. I do not think it was coincidence. It just so happens I'm sending you this 1 year later on December 5th, 2023, and I still have not heard Khan since. This past summer, the hibiscus bush bloomed so many vibrant flowers. It has never produced this much before. The entire summer was lively with hummingbirds, butterflies, honeybees, and hundreds of healthy hibiscus. I like to tell myself it's my two babies giving me a sign. Yes, I agree with you. The cat absolutely had to be warning you, and that is why he was so weirdly lovey and making those meows around your belly right before he was put down, because he was put down, you had a miscarriage. Then this was happening and he knew something was still not right. So I think he was sticking around and he was trying to be like, hey, you're not okay. Go to the doctor. And I think he left because he was done with his job. He made sure that you were okay. He said his goodbyes and then he was done. I'm so glad that you're okay physically. I'm so sorry for your losses. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I'm from Peru and this story is from when I was 22. My mom was just diagnosed with metastasized lung cancer. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. And the doctors told us that her life expectancy was only 3 months. A couple of months later-ish, my siblings and I started to feel a presence in our house. We felt this presence was a man, and even if we could not see him, we knew he was wearing a black suit with a black top hat. Also sometimes a cane. He was always standing at a corner of the hall where the stairs are. Every time I got back from work, I turned on all the lights on my way and run up the stairs as quickly as possible. I felt very scared. The hair on my arms stood up on end every time I passed this corner. I talked to my sister and she felt the same presence, but we never discussed this with my mom or my dad. By this point, my mom wasn't thinking clearly and confused some words when she spoke. In front of her bed, there was a huge mirror covering the closet doors, and from time to time, my mom asked my siblings and me to tell that man to leave her room. When I asked her more about this man, she said that he was standing at the corner of the room wearing a black suit with a black top hat. She kept telling us that she didn't like him and made her feel uncomfortable. We told her there was no one standing there, although we knew who she was referring to. After a month, my mom died. 3 months, all right. And we never felt that presence again. Here in Peru, people say that man is death and he comes to take the person. I was binge watching all of your videos on Instagram and was surprised to hear more stories about this hat man. That's why I wanted to share mine. Thank you for reading my story. Yes, I have never heard anything like evil about the hat man. I've only heard that he is a watcher. And I've also heard a lot of stories in which he is present and seen before a death. But he's not always present and seen before a death. A lot of the times he's just present and he's just watching, but no one's dying afterwards. So I'm not sure what the correlation there is. I don't know if there's like different kinds of hat men. I don't know if it's just a different situation thing. I'm honestly not really sure, but in this instance, it sure does seem like he was waiting for her to pass. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi. Hi. First and foremost, I love your videos. I have a crazy life, but when I finally get the opportunity, I mostly binge your videos. Okay, so I'm not sure if this is a glitch in the Matrix or what. So I have always been a huge Alec Baldwin fan. I even named my first son Alec. I felt some kind of sadness when the shooting on the set happened. I saw the news clips, read articles, and even Googled about it, and this was all during the pandemic, so I didn't really get to talk about it with other people. I would mention it during phone calls, and people would say that it's crazy, but nothing more. I just assumed that maybe they weren't big Alec Baldwin fans, so they didn't really care. Skip to the end of October of 2021. I was at work, and people started talking about it, and the same clips and articles showed up again, so I had only assumed that they were talking about the court case, as it had been a while since the incident. I didn't really think much of it, didn't put any effort into catching up on it, as I was super busy working a lot, trying to still catch up from no work during the pandemic. However, I remember one night a coworker had mentioned it, and I was like, yeah, that's old news. It happened during the pandemic. And she said, no, it just happened recently. I brushed it off as she didn't know what she was talking about, but I let her have her moment talking about it anyway. I started thinking about it a lot and almost obsessively until the end of my shift. And that night when I got home, I finally Googled it only to find out that she was right and it had only just happened. But a lot of the articles and clips I had already seen during the pandemic. It was such an eerie feeling. I spent days trying to come up with an explanation on how I had already seen all of the same things before it had actually even happened. I even Googled to see if the same thing happened before, maybe. Nothing. To this day, when the topic of the shooting gets brought up, I get this weird feeling. When I tell people what happened, they look at me as if I'm crazy. Did I see the future? Glitch in the Matrix? I still don't know. Nothing like this has ever happened since, but it's still an odd feeling that I can't shake every time I think about it or hear Alec Baldwin's name. I'm going to be quite honest with you, friends. I didn't even know he got shot at all. I don't ever pay attention to the news. But that is super duper crazy. Either you switched timelines or you were, I was going to say maybe you had a premonition, but like, why would you have a premonition about that? And why would you remember, if it was a premonition, right? Why would you remember like telling people and talking about it on the phone and all those things, not just like a little bit of it? I feel like this had to be like a timeline shift thing. I'm wondering if anybody else out there thought the same thing. Is there anyone else out there that thought that Alec Baldwin was shot during the pandemic in 2020? Saw the articles, saw the things. Like, is there anyone out there that this is also happening to, that's also experiencing this? I'm really interested. Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. If you haven't noticed, we've gone through several outfit changes because this video is taking me forever to make. This is the third outfit change, and now this is even a hairstyle change because I just got my hair done. I don't think I like it, but that's beside the point. Okay, let's keep going on with the stories. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I have a story about an experience my family and I shared together. I think you might be interested in. My brother, two of my cousins, and I were on our annual family summer vacation at our grandparents' house in Florida. Every evening, we would sit outside at a table that sat close to the house within the lanai, a screened-in patio area with the pool. We would talk for lengths on end, eat snacks, play games, and just enjoy each other's company. One night, late into the evening, something curious happened that we still talk about decades later. For context, it's important to note that there was a radio/speaker system mounted to the side of our grandparents' house next to a set of sliding glass doors that led out onto the lanai. I had never once heard the radio or sound system playing, nor had I even seen it touched by any of my family members for that matter. I actually thought maybe it wasn't even functional because it was always off. All of a sudden, as we were sitting, we were talking and laughing, the radio switched on all by itself. We froze in place and immediately fell completely silent, staring at each other with confused, darting side glances, listening intently. The four of us are sort of the type to believe in the paranormal, ghosts, extraterrestrials, weird happenings, and the like, so this was sort of exciting to us. Within a few moments, we realized the radio was tuned to a talk show, and the hosts and their guests were chatting about the paranormal. At this point, we were already like, what the fuck? But it gets weirder. After listening to a couple of minutes of talk show banter, one of the guests said clear as day, "When a spirit wants to contact you, you'll know it. They'll find a way." And then the radio cut out just as suddenly as it had turned on. None of us moved. We were in disbelief. When we could come to our senses, we sat there for another few hours trying to rationalize it, repeating that last line over and over in complete shock. We couldn't make sense of it. We even went inside to see if our grandparents were messing with us and had somehow turned the radio on from within the house. But the house was completely dark and they had been asleep for hours. Freaky to say the least. We still get creeped out thinking about it, and years later when we discuss this event, we all still remember those last words we heard before the radio turned off verbatim. We're so grateful we experienced it together because we can confidently say it really happened. Someone or something definitely made contact with us that night. You rule. I can't wait to see what other stories you share. Thank you. That was awesome. Something was definitely trying to say hello to you. I'm assuming it was probably an ancestor or a past loved one. But how cool. And what a specific message to come across the radio. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi. I hope my video gets your attention. I have watched all your videos and more. I was driving in Vallejo? Sorry, I don't know how to say that. When my husband and I saw a moving thing with lights, all in a straight line moving slow above us. This is the first time seeing something like this in this area. I was so excited to share this with you and all of your followers. I have videos and pictures I will attach to this email. This is so exciting. I manifested this moment. Okay, so here is the picture. Here is the line. Oh, it's going like upwards. For a second, I thought maybe it was like Starlink, but I feel like that's like a line, a horizontal line of them, and they're all going up at the same time. But this is a line like this. I want to check out the video. Hold on. Okay, here is the video that we're watching. I think the camera's trying to focus. Okay. Is this possible that this is still Starlink?
Right above us.
No.
It's still up here.
Or is it possible that it's like the bottom of a craft,
It's just like
the line of the bottom? Do you know what I'm talking about?
us.
I still feel like it's not Starlink because, again, Starlink is like horizontal and then they are all going like straight up, I feel like. And this is like
Right
kind of
above us.
on a
It's still up here.
diagonal a little bit. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And thank you so much for sharing this video and pictures. Auntie Matrix, you legend. Hi. Love following your stories on Insta and felt inspired to share one of my own. I've always been a bit witchy. I've seen ghosts, sensed presences, and had precognitive dreams, usually as a heads up for potential traumatic events. This is dampened as I've aged, but mostly by choice. This story is one of my favorites. My father died suddenly. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. When I was 15. The night before he passed, I was alone, trying to go to sleep, and I sat bolt upright in my bed and said out loud, "My dad is going to die." It was involuntary, nothing I had thought about in any detail, and I immediately dismissed it as one of those worst-case scenario thoughts that you might get when you feel a bit anxious. He'd had some back pain that was bothering him. The pain medication was making him ill. And things had gotten worse that week, but nothing we thought that he would die from. When he passed the next day, it was entirely unexpected, nothing I could have done differently. It had just been a warning to prepare myself. For a couple of weeks after he passed, he hung around the house. At the time, I think he didn't know he was dead because he had more or less died in our living room. I didn't see him, but I would find the fridge/freezer or our cabinets left open, relevant books on the floor. He was a history professor, so his books were super important to him. And one time, he made the music box in my room play. It was comforting to have him around. I wasn't afraid, and I tried to talk to him when these things happened. One day at school in second period, we had a quiz and I finished early, so I put my head down to wait for the bell and maybe have a nap. A TA came to the door and asked to borrow me. When I walked out the door and turned the corner, my dad was there, standing with the TA. He told me he understood what had happened, that he was sorry, and that he loved me. He wasn't in pain anymore and he looked at peace. He was glad to have the extra time in the house with us and that he was here now to say goodbye. The TA put their hand on his shoulder and they transformed. I suddenly understood that they were an angel or a guide. They said my dad's name gently and told him it was time to go. The ceiling of the school was gone, and dark clouds with lightning rolled into the sky and began to spin into a vortex, almost like a tornado touching down, but held in place so the opening faced us. The wormhole from Donnie Darko, which I had not seen at the time, is pretty close, but this was not as scary. I felt peaceful in its presence. They ascended, and it all went back to my school hallway. I walked back into the classroom and saw myself with my head down and returned to myself, opening my eyes and lifting my head as the bell rang. The activity in our house stopped. I often dream of my dead people and can tell the difference between when it's a dream and when it's them coming to visit. To this day, I understand this to have been my dad coming to say goodbye before crossing over to let me know he was okay. First, I thought that you were physically walking out of the classroom with a TA, like an actual TA, and then you saw your dad, and I was thinking, oh my God, does the TA see the dad? And then when you said the TA put his hand on the dad's shoulder and transformed, what did he look like when he transformed? And then when you said you walked back into yourself, I was like, oh my God, they were actually astral projecting to be able to say goodbye to your dad. That is so cool and so beautiful. I'm so sorry for your loss, but thank you so much for sharing your story. I met my ex after I divorced my ex-husband in 2015. We dated for 8 months before I introduced him to my son, who was 2 at the time. Everything seems great. He was good with my son and good to me. At the 1-year mark, my lease was ending and my best friend had decided to move from South Carolina to Alabama to live with me with her 2 kids. My ex, my bestie, and I decided to just get a place all together since me and her were living in a 2-bedroom with 5 of us and he was living in a shared college apartment. We found a place that was halfway between my work and his since my best friend didn't work. I never saw the place before he rented it. I'm a sensitive and always go into places I've rented or homes I've bought before just buying or renting because I've had experiences with spirits before. We move in and immediately I get bad vibes. There were 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, a huge living room and a huge kitchen. The place was gorgeous. One of the rooms was off the kitchen and had the laundry room attached to it. My best friend decided we would put her boys in that room since it was a decent size. My son got his own room and she got her own room, and my ex and I shared the master. A week after moving in, things got weird. All the kids started having nightmares, and none would sleep in their respective rooms, and none would even go into the room off the kitchen. I hated going in it myself. I started having bad dreams, and then the kitchen cabinets and doors started slamming. My ex worked night shifts in the mines, so me and her were there alone with the kids a lot. We all started sleeping in my room with the kids because things were getting so bad. I was having horrible dreams and seeing things out of the corners of my eyes. My best friend was as well. My ex said we were crazy and the house was fine. This went on for months. He had been working 7 days a week since we moved in, but decided to move to day shift after I complained enough about being scared. The first night he was home, it was like the whole house was possessed. Lights turning on and off, cabinets and doors slamming. He was freaked out. We finally managed to get in bed and fall asleep after praying like crazy. We hadn't even been laying there more than 3 minutes when he sits up and says, "What the fuck are you doing? Go back in there with your mom." And immediately jumps up, runs across the room and turns on the lights. All the hairs on his body were standing up. He said he saw a little boy in our room, and when he spoke, they turned around and had red eyes. We moved out by the end of the week. My title says they were trying to warn me. My dreams were of him unaliving me and my son. He started hitting me and cutting me off from everyone not too long after we left that house. He wouldn't let my friend move with us, so she went back to South Carolina. He cut me off from everyone. I stayed for 3 years until I finally managed to get away after we had a daughter. I'm now happily married to an amazing man and have another baby boy. Okay, hold on a second, because you said you thought that the spirit was trying to warn you of your ex. However, if he was never like that before, and then you moved into this place that had crazy bad energy and crazy bad negative entity activity, is it possible that something attached itself to your ex? And then that's why after you moved, even, he started doing bad shit. I feel like that's a possibility. I wonder, do you know how he's doing now? Did you ever find out anything about the house? Like, was there any history in the house? That is just so super crazy. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Hey, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I love your videos, and I hope you get the chance to read my story. We're reading it right now, only a year later. I'm so sorry. I try to read as many as I can. Once I was doing some training at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, now Fort Liberty. We were staying in some barracks on base. I kept getting spooky vibes from the room I was staying in, but didn't think anything of it. I was in the room alone. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night with sleep paralysis. There was a girl in a red dress standing between my bed and the wall, holding my legs down. When I finally snapped out of it, I was significantly spooked. Yeah. The next day, I was talking to one of the guys that had gone there with. We started talking about the supernatural, but I did not mention the event from the night prior. While we were talking, he mentioned that he had died for a few minutes on the operating table a few years prior and had been able to see the supernatural ever since. I asked him if he had seen anything in the barracks since we had gotten there. He said that he had seen a girl skipping down the hallway in a red dress. I then told him about the events from the night prior and told him that I would be staying in his room for the rest of the trip. Oh my God, I love that you were validated and that someone else saw the same exact spirit. I do not like that she was trying to hold you down, though. Little child spirits are so freaky. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Hello, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I've been watching your videos for months now and decided to tell a story of my own. It's a little long because I've only told the story in person and I don't really know how to tell the story in writing, if that makes sense. Hope y'all enjoy. So me and my mother-in-law decided to take a trip to Wimberley, Texas, because her dad was gifting her a car that I was needing to drive back for her while she drove her current car. The weather was amazing and it was warm, the kind of weather where the warm is just right. This is important for later. So from where we lived in North Dallas, I believe it was about 2.5-hour drive, if not longer. So we get on the road. We have my son, who was 4 at the time, my daughter, who was 2, and my sister and brother-in-law. We get there and we chit-chat over coffee. The kids played and ate some sandwiches and chips and other snacks. We stayed there talking for a few hours, enjoying the weather. It got time for us to leave, so we said our goodbyes and headed out. Keep in mind, we lived in North Dallas at this time. So I'm driving. I have my son and my sister-in-law in one car, and my mother-in-law, who is driving in front of me, has my daughter and my brother-in-law with her in the other car. We had been driving for about an hour when my son had fallen asleep, and every time we've gone on a road trip, he will sleep the entire way. So it was odd to me when we hit this little town about 30 minutes out of Dallas, Texas, my son wakes up and says, "Mama, I'm hungry." And I tell him, "You ate before we left. You can't be hungry. We're almost home. I'll make you something when we get there." He bursts into tears, acting hysterical that he is hungry and he wants something to eat now. So then I call my mother-in-law, who's in the car in front of me, and tell her that my son's hungry, if she wants to stop and get something to eat. And she goes on to say the same thing I did. And I follow with, "I know, I told him that, but he's having a fit about it and he wants to eat now." So she says, okay. And she says we'll stop at the next restaurant that she sees. So I get a call back from her telling me to pull into the Taco Bell up ahead and we can sit and eat there. And then we have to get back on the road because it's getting late. And of course, I was relieved because I had a crying 4-year-old in my backseat. So we get off and we're there for about 20 minutes or so. And once we're done eating, we get back on the road. As soon as we're entering Dallas, the town is destroyed. We are passing debris, broken trees, roofs torn off, houses and buildings, cars flipped over, people on the side of the road. It was raining, there was lightning, and it was dark already, about 10 p.m. And with the lightning flashing, you could clearly see a tornado in the distance right ahead of us. If it wasn't for my son throwing a fit about eating, we would have been right in the middle of that tornado. Could my son feel something, or was it just a coincidence? I've questioned that specific day all these years. It still shocks me to this day. P.S. I also always believe he has a guardian angel that follows him everywhere that he used to call Bum Bum. He doesn't talk about it anymore now that he's 7, but I do remember one day my son was talking about Bum Bum to me and my sister-in-law, and she tells him to tease him and says Bum Bum isn't real, and he got so angry, started crying and trying to hit her. And my son knew better than not to hit. So it was a shock to me. I had to calm him down and tell her not to say that because it was obviously upsetting him. This is just one of many stories of my son saving us from something that could have been a disaster. That was not a coincidence. 100% that was not a coincidence. I don't know if your son felt something or if something kind of compelled him to do that. Maybe something else, like a guardian type, a protective spirit, or protective entity made him wake up and feel hungry and cry until you stopped. Like the burnt toast theory. But I for sure 100% think that was not a coincidence. That was done on purpose so that you guys would be okay. My God, how freaking scary. I'm so glad that he saved you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. That concludes our creepy compilation for today. If you enjoyed this video and you want to watch more like it, please make sure that you subscribe. But if you want to keep it going right now, you can check out this video or this playlist.